Today we will be discussing the Federated Women's Institutes of Canada. Our group members are Krista, Fathima, Sumayya, and Yasmeen. Analysis questions. Number 1. How did the Women's Institute originate and what is their goal? Number 2. Who was the founder of the Women's Institute of Canada and what was her initial motive for how this group began? And number 3. What are the benefits of the Women's Institute towards adult education? Today, the Federal Women's Institute of Canada continues to give women a voice and speak out nationally on behalf of women and families while inspiring them to make a difference. It continues to serve its vision in most rural communities throughout Canada. The Women's Institute has the important objective to conduct many kinds of social, environmental, and economic affairs for the community. Every phase of work and every movement is non-partisan, non-sectarian, and non-racial. Women's Institute works for the equal good of citizens in democratic manners to allow equal opportunities for minorities to express their respectful opinions. Women's Institute also works to initiate programs to strengthen families and communities, interpret and record local history, advocate for resolutions, briefs, and letters, share fun and friendship, develop and hone leadership skills, address issues on a local, national, and global scale, and share the voice of women around the world. Here are some achievements.
With the Institute, we will really rock. Rockin' with the Institute, we will really rock.
Since 1897, we have advocated for change, too many to reveal here.
In 1897, the Women's Institute movement began with founder Adelaide Hoodlett advocating for pasteurization in milk.
In 2011, we supported a Canada-wide WI resolution to protect our water. We pressed for markers at all railway crossings.
1992, we lobbied to have best before dates visible on all food products.
We fought to have center lines painted on our highways.
In 1981, we advocated to discourage junk food and promote healthy food in our schools.
1975, we pressured to have our government stop selling our water rights.
1957, we lobbied for washing or dry cleaning instructions on all fabrics.
In 2004, we strongly urged to have age of consent raised from 14 to at least 6.
1991, we pressured government to have all irradiated food labeled.
Looking at this timeline, we can see that the history of one of our greatest organizations begins right here in Ontario. In order to understand the Federated Women's Institutes in Canada, we must first get to know Adelaide. Adelaide Hunter married John Hunter in 1881 and settled in Hamilton, Ontario. Similar to many other women her age, Adelaide settled into a traditional lifestyle. In 1888, tragedy struck, and she lost her fourth son, who was 14 months old, from drinking contaminated milk. After this, she vowed to ensure other women were educated in the domestic sciences, as their roles were primarily to safeguard their families. Considered radical in this day, she began lobbying the government, as well as took part in several initiatives to advocate for social, environmental, and economic changes, and to have nutrition and hygiene taught to women and give them a united and strong voice. The Federated Women's Institute was founded in Ontario in 1897. The movement took Canada by storm, with many chapters of the FWIC opening in other provinces and in the UK. The Women's Institute was founded in 1897 in Stony Creek, with the aim of assisting women in their domestic practices. At the international level, the Women's Institutes contributed to the development of the Associated Country Women of the World, which operates in 70 countries and has a membership of 9,365,000 member societies. The Women's Institute was formed as a method of educating rural women with the purpose of improving their lives through studying domestic science. The organization did this by providing women with a better understanding of the economic and hygienic value of food and a more scientific care of children. The organization was meant to educate women on activities like cooking, sewing, home nutrition, childcare, and handcrafts. But because each women's institute operated at a community level, each was able to quickly adapt to fulfill the specific needs of the locals. The Women's Institute contributed to adult learning by conducting courses in the topics of cooking, sewing, home nutrition, childcare, and handcrafts. For the first month-long course offered by FWIC, branch members throughout Canada were asked to send a representative. These representatives returned to their respective communities to teach what they had learned, and this turned out to be an effective format which remains in use today. Subjects have expanded to include agricultural topics such as dairying, beekeeping, and poultry raising, and later banking and business skills became part of the standard course as well. Another educational method used by Women's Institute was the publication of pamphlets. Pamphlets including topics such as stocking winter gardens, care of the sick room, household sanitation, little economics, harmful weeds, how to get more eggs, hay box cooking, and labor-saving devices. Study circles were also utilized as a method of education and socializing. It can be derived that the Women's Institute used and continues to use an andragogical approach to teaching and learning, as the members of the group are all adults. Hoodless had lobbied to have schools add topics of domestic science to the curriculum in public schools, which would use a more pedagogical approach given the age of the girls in public schools. The Women's Institutes as a movement functions closest to two sociological theories, and they include the functionalist theory and the feminist theory. The movement closely reflects the functionalist theory, as the role of adult education is to teach the necessary skills and norms for individuals to participate in society. The movement closely reflects the feminist perspective, as it examines the personal and institutional challenges that affect women's entry and active participation in adult educational programs. The sociological theorist that closely reflects the goals of the Women's Institutes is Emily Durkheim, as the movement had components of her belief that education serves as an economic function and that it is important to teach the skills that are required in order to complete day-to-day functions and activities. The Women's Institute movement closely reflects the liberal philosophy as well, as it uses the lecture method as the instructional strategy, followed with discussion and dialogue. Neither the membership form for the Federated Women's Institute nor the website stipulates that you must be a woman to be a member. However, given the title of the group, it would be fair to say that the group would attract a female demographic. As outlined in the timeline, this group began in 1897. We are now well over 100 years in the future. The issues mainly concerning women historically may be issues or concerns for more than just women now. Meet Canadian-born Maribel Partridge. It is the year 1923. Maribel comes from a poor family and went to school to the age of 10. She stopped going to school as a neighboring farm needed help with their chores, and the income would help Maribel's family. She got married at the age of 18 to the neighboring farmer's son and now has 5 children, all under the age of 10. Listed here are some of Maribel's commitments and responsibilities. Meet Canadian-born Edwin Nguyen. It is the year 2020. Edwin grew up in a fairly middle-class home and now holds a master's degree in English literature. He got married at the age of 28 to his longtime girlfriend, who is a physiotherapist. They now have 2 children, ages 7 and 9. Edwin's wife recently opened a physiotherapy clinic and spends most of her time there. Edwin is currently working on writing a textbook and spends most of his time working from home to be available for the family. Listed here are some of Edwin's commitments and responsibilities.
Occupations for men and women. For many centuries, gender roles were pretty simple and somewhat similar. In everyday life, men and women shared the work on the farm and in businesses that were run from the home. Then, the Industrial Revolution helped bring about a pretty big change. There were new factories that needed workers, and the workplace became separate from the home. Men left the home to take jobs. Before long, people behaved as though it were absolutely natural for men to work and for women to stay home with the kids. But then, in the 20th century, some 200 years after the Industrial Revolution, gender roles went through another big change. When men went off to fight in World War I and World War II, women filled in at factories, offices, and stores. Many women loved these new opportunities. They felt as if they had been freed from the home and didn't want to return to homemaking when the war was over, acting as though nothing had changed. Many sought education in fields dominated by men. Soon they were becoming doctors, business leaders, and even heads of state. Some men who welcomed this change decided they wanted to be nurses, teachers, secretaries, and receptionists. More men started staying home with the children. But there were people who resisted this change.
Synthesis questions. Number 1. How do men benefit from women's institutes, and how do they participate in them? Number 2. Should the name of these institutes across Canada change to reflect the change in gender roles over time? And number 3. How does the Women's Institute affect gender roles in Canada?